welcome to this interview. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices together, and we're doing this interview today on a really interesting subject. We're doing two interviews, in fact, one today and one tomorrow, where we're looking at how we can develop well-being and community care by involving the community. And what we need to do that, because we're getting at a time where we have an aging population, where we have so many problems of mental health and loneliness and so on, where we're short of resources, that we have to innovate and find new ways. Tomorrow we're interviewing Claudine Reid, who is doing some interesting work on digital engagement as well as bottom-up work. And today we've got Julie Powell from CommUNITYy Barnet, who's going to tell us about the work that they do on social prescription and other work as well. So welcome, Julie, and I'm glad you're with us today. As Julie speaks, if you have any questions and you'd like to type it on the chat box of our webinar platform or in the comment box of Facebook, please do so. Anyhow, Julie, welcome. Perhaps you can tell us, first of all, what CommUNITYy Barnet is, because I know that's what you're involved in.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm really pleased to be part of this very exciting venture. So my name's Julie Powell. I'm the Chief Executive of an organisation called CommUNITYy Barnet. We're what would be traditionally described as an infrastructure organisation. We're located in the London Borough of Barnet, but we deliver services not just in Barnet, but also in Brent, Enfield and Newham. And we deliver a range of services, from providing local infrastructure to community organisations, to delivering Health Watch, to providing specialist children and young people services, and information and advice. And in terms of today's conversation, I'm here to really talk about the work we've done in Barnet around establishing a wellbeing hub, which was commissioned by Barnet CCG as part of the Mental Health Transformation Programme, and about how we've been able to work with local voluntary and community organisations, GPs, the Mental Health Trust and statutory commissioners to create a socially prescribable community intervention. Okay,
are you actually a social enterprise?
We're not. We're actually a charity, and we're also registered with Companies House. So we're a company limited by guarantee as well, but we are ostensibly a charity. Our regulator is the Charity Commission and our objects, and we post all we file all our accounts and everything to the Charity Commission annually.
And is this something that you started yourself? Are you the founder of it, and what led you to, get involved in this way?
So it's been around for about 40 years. Started with a couple of people and some volunteers, and was very much around trying to encourage civic activity through volunteering, but also to try and support local charities to win money to deliver their activities. And since then, it's had a successful history of bidding for grants and from trusts and foundations. And since I've taken over its leadership, we've also developed our skills around winning contracts from local authorities and health commissioners.
Okay, now you follow what's called a social prescription model of social delivery. Now, some people don't know what social prescription is. They've heard it. Maybe some people haven't even heard it. Do you want to tell us what social prescribing is?
So, our understanding of social prescribing is one that's been advocated by the King's Fund. And it's social prescribing can also be described as community referral. And it's a way of enabling GPs, nurses, and other primary care professionals to refer people to a range of local non-clinical services. What's particularly interesting in the Barnet model is that we've been able to systematise that approach by actually supporting GPs particularly to be able to make referrals through their prescribing system. And that's what sets us apart from quite a lot of social prescribing activities across the country.
Okay, so what sort of social prescribing would they do? What would they prescribe for a patient that is not a medical prescription?
Okay, so maybe if I start off with the user journey. So if somebody is feeling a little bit unwell, is feeling a little bit socially isolated, is not really sure of how they're feeling, they can contact us through the Wellbeing Hub. We have a website, we have an email address, we have a telephone, we have a centre where people can walk in. And what we've got is a group of what we call community navigators. And what they will do is they will meet people and they will ask them to complete what we call an emotional health check. And on the back of that emotional health check, people will be given a wellbeing plan, which will include some sort of community support. It will include some possibly information and advice, and it may suggest some goals that people might want to do. What's really interesting is that people can do that also through their GP. So they can go to their GP and say, "Doctor, I'm not feeling great." And what the GP can do is say, "Actually, I don't think you need a clinical intervention, but I think you're lonely. I think you could benefit from contacting the Wellbeing Hub. What I'm going to do is set up a referral, and then that referral comes through to the Wellbeing Hub."
Okay, so that's quite interesting. So there isn't just one gateway. You established at least two or more gateways for the individual to make contact to the service they need.
That's right. I mean, what we're trying to do is create a bit of a universal offer to residents, because what we found is that, particularly with the amount of increased information around mental well-being, it's starting to help people to understand that they may themselves need a little bit of support. They may not necessarily wish to speak to, they may not necessarily feel they need a medical, sorry, something's just popped up on my screen, which is distracting me. They may not actually need to have a clinical referral, but they may want to talk to somebody to say they're feeling a bit out of sorts and a bit lonely, and so they want to be able to talk to somebody who can help them to do a simple non-clinical self-assessment. And that's been, this emotional health check has been developed by clinicians, so who are actually well skilled in understanding what people need. Okay,
so you have the health check, which has been developed by clinicians. Right. You have GPs who are part of this service. Now, clearly, you've got the health authorities, the clinicians on board for this. Now, that's quite a big task to do, because some clinicians might say, "No, that's not us." How did you get them involved? How did you get them on board? How did you persuade them that this is something that they should be doing?
Well, actually, I think credit needs to be given to Barnet Clinical Commissioning Group, because they were the mental health clinical lead, Dr. Charlotte Benjamin, was really keen to make access to mental well-being a really important part of supporting the whole community. And the Clinical Commissioning Group, or the CCG, managed to access some money from the Department of Health for transformation of adult mental health services. So they created a program called Reimagining Mental Health. And the idea was that they believed that if we managed to create a collaboration of the voluntary sector health providers, health and social care commissioners, it would be possible to take a whole systems approach of working together to create a single point of access where local residents could actually access services. And I think, you know, credit where credit is due, the clinical commissioning group have been really innovative in their aspirations for improving well-being in the local community. They also were confident that the local voluntary and community sector would have the capacity and capability and appetite to look at ways of working together. And I think there was also a confidence that primary health and primary care professionals would be prepared to work with GPs. And the other thing I think that really helped was that the Mental Health Trust agreed to second some of their link workers to be based within GP surgeries to actually support GPs as part of this bigger transformation agenda. So it has really been a whole systems approach.
That's quite interesting that you have non-clinical people in the GP surgery, because some GPs might find that difficult thing to accept. So was it the CCG that got all this together for you with the GPs, or did you then have to go and talk to them one by one to work out a plan for each surgery?
So the primary link workers were actually employed by Barnet, Enfield and Haringey Mental Health Trust, and they were loaned to, there was basically a secondment opportunity through the enablement team, I believe, who actually went and sat in GP surgeries across the borough and actually worked with GPs. And because they were employed by the Mental Health Trust, because they understood the protocols and the assurances and the realities that GPs were operating within, it was actually possible for us to broker that relationship. So GPs were sometimes, what was happening was that patients would come in and see their GP, and sometimes the GPs were then able to talk to the link workers to say, do you know what, I don't think this person needs a clinical intervention. I think they would better benefit from a social intervention. Do you know where they could go? And the primary care link workers would then say, well, actually, we've got the Wellbeing Hub, which was then in its infancy. Why don't we refer them on to the Wellbeing Hub, who will then identify local community providers who can support this person? And what that will do is actually mean that they don't need to receive some sort of medical intervention or medication.
Okay, and was the local authority involved in this in any way? Were they part of that infrastructure you set up?
So initially, it was very much under the leadership of the CCG. But obviously, as you're aware, Francis, there is a big national movement towards the integration of health and social care. So the local authority have become much more involved, and we've got one of the local authority enablement programs is very much part of the steering group for the Wellbeing Service. And so what we're trying to do is create a mixture of a step up, step down service. So for example, people who are seen by the local authority are very much people who are in need of support and interventions. And once they've actually completed their 6-week program, they will then, the network, which is the organisation in Barnet, will then, as part of the discharge process, will then discharge people to the Wellbeing Hub, who will then pick up their ongoing support in a community setting.
Okay, so I mean, talking about the local authority might take us on to another step, and that is, I gather you're also working in Enfield as well on something called Enfield Connections. And I think people in Enfield would be very interested in what that is. Could you tell us about it?
So Enfield Connections is an information and advice service that we have been commissioned to deliver by Enfield Council as part of their transformation programme for Enfield residents. The aim of the programme is that Enfield, as you so rightly pointed out in your introduction, is experiencing a change in its demographic profile. There's an increasing number of older people, and what the local authority are keen to do is to encourage people to stay independent, to self-manage their care, to self-manage themselves, and believe that if people receive appropriate information and advice, they will be able to become less dependent on needing adult social care until they actually really need it. So it's really about managing demand. So what we have done is we've commissioned a number of local Enfield charities to deliver a range of services for us. So for example, we've commissioned Citizens Advice Enfield to provide a fast track disability advice service. Enfield, Minds in Enfield will offer an information and signposting service, and will also undertake emotional health checks, which I've already referred to. We have Age UK Enfield, who are providing a later life planning service, which is directed at people over 55 to help them to start to make plans for later life, because we're very conscious of the fact that many of us leave later life planning when we enter some sort of crisis, and we don't make well-informed decisions. And then we've got Enfield Disability Action, who are going to be providing volunteer brokerage. And last but by no means least, we have the Homeless Resource Centre based over in Angel, Edmonton, and who are supporting homeless people. So it's quite a broad service that we're offering.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
on top of...
Carry on.
No, so the last bit of it I was going to say is that also we're linking in with the new directory that Enfield Council has produced, which will be a single repository of information and advice.
Okay, so it looks like you've got the infrastructure developing in the groups that you're working with, the voluntary groups that you're working with. You're working with Enfield, you're working with the website. That's great, but what you don't seem to have in Enfield that you have in Barnet is the way in which the people in need can find a gateway into what you're doing as comprehensively as you have in Barnet, because you don't have the social prescribing model yet in Enfield. Is that a deficiency that you would like to see dealt with?
So we have had, we've done presentations to the primary care link workers that are located in Enfield. So it is something that I know that they are very interested in. And obviously we, the Mental Health Trust covers services both in Barnet, Enfield and Haringey. So I am hoping that there are conversations happening with commissioners across the borough boundaries, where I do hope that those sorts of conversations are happening. But at this moment in time, we've been very keen to just focus on the work that we've been currently commissioned to deliver. But what we're very happy to do is talk with local commissioners in Enfield about the work we've been delivering in Barnet, because we do believe it can be replicated and that it can actually be of benefit to Enfield residents.
So what you're saying to Enfield is you would say to any local authority is that in order for well-being to benefit us all, it's got to be integrated fully, and you've got to involve the services and the voluntary groups.
Completely. And I think one of the advantages in terms of Barnet and Enfield are both part of the North Central London STP footprint. So actually, it makes sense for all of us to be working to a single common agenda. And I know that that is very much part of what the health and care partners in North London are very keen to achieve.
When you work in another borough like Enfield, I mean, you're Community Barnet, you used to be Barnet Voluntary Services. There is an Enfield Voluntary Services. I mean, are you in competition with them, or is there some sort of collaboration going on?
We have always keen to work in collaboration with all of our partners, and we have certainly reached out to Enfield Voluntary. I think they're called Enfield Voluntary Action locally, and I think at this moment in time we are very keen to work with them, and we have invited them to come and collaborate with us on this programme. And this is, you know, our doors are always open to working with as many different groups as possible. And certainly the programme manager for Enfield Connections is has a well-known local footprint because she used to work in Mind in Enfield, so is well known amongst the local voluntary and community organisations.
So, I mean, that's one of the sort of problems, isn't it, when you are a social enterprise or a charity in one geographical area and you outsource yourself with another area, you come into competition with the people in that area. So it's a sort of delicate path you have to tread. I mean, Enfield does it with its energy. It's got Energetic, which it hopes to, you know, outsource to other boroughs. But it is a difficult thing, isn't it? You've got to really bring people on board, almost, well, not almost, but as an equal.
Completely. And actually, one of the things that we did when we moved into Enfield is that we've created a management board, which of those partners that I've already mentioned. And the thing that people need to remember is that this is not a standalone piece of work that the local authority have commissioned. There are 5 other prime contractors that are delivering this VCS transformation programme. And so we all meet together regularly, facilitated by the local authority. So we all work together, we all share our progress, we share our challenges. The programme manager for Enfield Connections attends that meeting, which is facilitated by Enfield Council. And yes, you're right, you know, it is always important when you're moving into a new area to ensure that you build relationships and you form collaborations. And Enfield is not the first borough that we've moved into. We also work in other London boroughs, and we have cordial and constructive and positive relationships in those boroughs as well. And, you know, relationships take time, people, and we're very sensitive to the way that people may be feeling. We've always tried to reach out to organisations through the CVS direct. There is a London-wide CVS directors network, which is very vibrant, and we come together as different CVS directors. So there are a number of ways that we're actually working together in partnership.
So it's quite an interesting model, isn't it? Because in a way, the charity, you or a social enterprise, Claudine, who we speak to tomorrow, is a social enterprise. In a way, you become the catalyst for innovation and change, don't you? But the local authority can have a real role, positive role in coordination, bringing everyone together, making sure all of the halls are filled up, and that the service you offer is comprehensively delivered and not done in a hodgepodge way.
I think that's really true. And I think one of the, you know, the local authority has a duty to be a community leader. And I think sometimes, particularly in these constrained times of funding, that it's sometimes easy to forget some of that collaborative leadership responsibility. I think Enfield Council is trying really hard by actually calling these quarterly meetings. I think they're quarterly meetings of the VCS consortium. I think it's trying really hard. But I think innovation still sits within the charitable and social enterprise sector, just because we're closer to the ground. We know what residents are saying. We can hear them, and actually we have the appetite and the capability to manage and mitigate risk to actually drive forward innovation, so that residents can actually have best possible outcomes with public money.
So, I mean, would your message to local authorities be that although you may worry about cuts and financial restrictions and austerity, you can still do something, you can still positively make a difference by being, as you call it, a leader in your community, a community leader that brings all the other agencies and the voluntary groups together? And if you do that, you can actually get more for less, and you can really make a difference.
I think working together is the only way that you can deliver positive outcomes for everybody. So I think it's really, really important that we all learn to work together and trust each other, and understand that we can work side by side.
Okay, so finally, I mean, is this sort of collaborative model and network model with the community, because you have to build from the bottom up, is this, do you think, the way of the future, irrespective of whether we have lots of resources or very few resources? This is a way of the future to deal with the really big problems of well-being and loneliness and so on, mental health problems that we have in the community. Is this the way we should be really putting our emphasis on now?
I think so, because that's what we did in Barnet. We basically we brought together the communities to actually co-design and co-deliver a solution which we think will start to reap massive public benefit for all. Okay, well, thank you for doing that, Julie. And I think ending up with you talking about the importance of local authorities and others being involved in a co-design environment is really, really an important message that I hope Enfield, all local authorities listen to, because it's really, really important. So thank you for telling us about what you do. Thank you for telling us about the work that you do and the benefits. There were a lot more questions we could certainly ask. So thank you very much. And yeah, thank you. I hope we'll do an interview again with you sometime in the future.